Hello, everyone. My name is Miss Yokish, and I am a fifth grade teacher here at Elmwood. Today, I am going to be reading Chapter 7 of Oggie Cooder. After lunch, Mr. Smolinowski's class always did science and math. Then they would finish the day with an hour of creative writing. Creative writing was Oggie's worst subject. For one thing, his handwriting was horrible, which was one of the reasons America hadn't been able to read his spelling sentence earlier in the day. But the bigger problem was that Oggie could never seem to think of anything he wanted to write about. Ideas are like seeds, Mr. Smolinowski had explained to the class one day. Plant a seed, and you'll grow a story. Oggie had stayed after school that day to ask Mr. Smolinowski a question. Where do those story seeds you were talking about come from? Mr. Smolinowski tapped the side of his head. In here, he said, and here too. He tapped the left side of his chest over his heart. We're all full of seeds, Oggie. You mean like all watermelons are full of seeds? Oggie asked. Mr. Smolinowski smiled and said, Yes, exactly. That's what I was afraid of, sighed Oggie. What do you mean? Mr. Smolinowski asked. My Aunt Hetty has a garden and she grows watermelons that look like regular watermelons from the outside. But when you cut them open, they don't have any seeds in them at all. Mr. Smolinowski scratched his head. I think I know what you're trying to say, he told Oggie. But believe me when I tell you that you're a very interesting person, Oggie Cooder. And unlike your aunt's watermelons, interesting people always have seeds in them. Oggie liked that Mr. Smolinowski had chosen the words very interesting to describe him, but he was not convinced that what his teacher had said about the seeds was true. As he sat at his desk listening to the scritch-scratch of pencils going on all around him, Oggie's mind was a total blank, not a seed in sight. Finally, he raised his hand. May I go get a drink of water? He asked. Mr. Smolinowski nodded, and Oggie went out into the hall to the drinking fountain. He took several long gulps of cool water, and when he lifted his head to wipe his mouth, he looked down the hall and noticed a very short man standing outside the school office with a cardboard box in his arms. The man was bald and had dark sunglasses pushed up onto his forehead. As Oggie watched the man place the box on the floor, opened it up, and took out a piece of bright pink paper. Then, standing on the box in order to help him reach, he tacked the pink paper up on the school bulletin board. The man noticed Oggie watching him. Check it out, he called down the hall to Oggie. You never know, kid. This could be your big break. Oggie wasn't sure what the man was talking about, but even though he was curious, he was afraid if he took the time to walk down the hall to look at the bulletin board, Mr. Smolinowski might notice that he was taking too long to get his drink. He did not want to get in trouble. 3:00 tomorrow afternoon at the band shell, the man called, then jumped off the box, picked it up, and left. Oggie went back to his classroom, telling himself to be sure to remember to stop and look at the pink flyer after school to find out what it was all about. As he opened the door, he ran right smack into Donica Perfecto, who was on her way out of the classroom with a bathroom pass in her hand. Excuse you, said Donica as she pushed past him. Is the picture? Oggie had hoped that taking a water break might somehow loosen his brain enough to make a story seed fall out of it. But nothing like that seemed to be happening. Mr. Smolinowski noticed that Oggie was having trouble and came over to talk to him. Can I ask you something, Oggie? Sure. Do you have any pets? Yuppers, a dog named Turk. He's the best. Does he ever do funny things? Sure, said Oggie. Like what? Mr. Smolinowski asked. Like this one time, he buried a bone under my mother's pillow, and another time, he found a bag of black licorice, and Mr. Smolinowski held up his hand to stop Oggie. Write it, Oggie, he said. Oggie was confused. Write what? He asked. The story about what Turk did with the black licorice, Mr. Smolinowski told him. That's a seed. Is it? Said Oggie, lighting up. When the final bell rang, Oggie had already used up 2 pages, front and back, writing his story, and he hadn't even gotten to the part about Turk throwing up yet. He put his story in his backpack in case he wanted to work on it some more at home. Then he got his jacket out of his closet, waved goodbye and to Mr. Smolnowski, and started down the hall. As he walked past the bulletin board, he suddenly remembered the man he'd seen earlier and stopped to take a look at the pink flyer. Only it wasn't there. Oggie searched the whole board twice, but there wasn't anything even remotely pink, and there wasn't anything that mentioned an event taking place at the band shell on Friday either. Weird, said Oggie. You sure are, someone said right behind him. Oggie turned around in time to see David Corbin disappearing around the corner with a basketball tucked under his arm. Oggie stopped at the library before heading home that afternoon. Otherwise, he might have to run into Donica Perfecto and her posse as they stood on the corner waiting for the light to change. You guys are coming over to my house now, right? Dawn said. A sudden gust of wind whipped Donica's hair across her face. She quickly brushed it away and then put her hand in her pocket. She felt the pink paper flyer there and pushed it down deeper. She didn't want anyone to see it, especially not Dawn or Hannah. I can't come over today, Donica said. Why not? Asked Hannah. I've got a stomach ache. Donica suddenly grabbed her middle and grimaced as if she were in horrible pain. Actually, I think my appendix might be exploding. Are you okay? Both girls asked, full of concern. I'll be fine, Donica replied, but I think I'd better go straight home, just in case I need to go to the hospital or anything. That's strange, said Dawn as Donica hurried away, still clutching her stomach. She seemed perfectly fine a minute ago, didn't she? As it turned out, Dawn and Hannah were right to be suspicious. Donica Perfecto was definitely up to something. The question was, what? All right, thank you for listening.